When I first opened Meta's new Threads app on Wednesday night, I was extremely excited for a very brief second. I hadn't followed anyone yet, but my feed was already full of content. I initially thought they had opened the floodgates and just put everyone in the same feed together. I quickly realized that wasn't what was happening at all, and that in fact Threads was running on an algorithm similar, if not identical, to Instagram's.
And that's when I became deeply depressed. Although I also realized I had a unique opportunity. I decided I wouldn't follow anyone for several days, and instead I let the raw machinery of Threads' algorithm show me the content that I guess Meta really wanted me to see.
Here's my verdict. Threads sucks shit. It has no purpose, it is for no one, it launched as a content graveyard and will assuredly only become more of one over time. It's iFunny for people who miss the Ellen Show. It has a distinct celebrities making videos during COVID lockdown vibe. It feels like a 90s themed office party organized by a human resources department. And my theory, after staring into this dark heart for several days, is that it was never meant to beat Twitter, regardless of what Zuckerberg has been tweeting. Threads' true purpose was to act as a fresh coat of paint for Instagram's code, in the hopes it might make the network relevant again.
Threads is also proof that Meta, even after all these years, has no other real ambition other than scale. But let's start at the beginning.
Here's MySpace, and here is one of the men who founded it, Tom Anderson. How are you? Good to see you. You are much blonder in your profile pic.
MySpace launches in 2003, and it quickly makes the idea of a social network mainstream. Facebook goes live exclusively for users with college email addresses a year later. Facebook's newsfeed, which turns the platform into something beyond just a MySpace for rich kids, turns on in 2006. MySpace use peaks in 2008, Facebook overtakes it in 2009, the chronological newsfeed is phased out in 2011, and the algorithmic era begins.
Hey everyone, yesterday Governor Chris Christie challenged me to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Governor, I accept your challenge. And after I dump this bucket of ice on my head, I get to nominate 3 new people to challenge. So I'm going to challenge Bill Gates, my partner at Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, and Netflix's founder and CEO, Reed Hastings, to do this within the next 24 hours. So you have 24 hours to do this, or you have to donate $100. All right, here we go. That was really cold.
Twitter, on the other hand, comes from an entirely different evolutionary branch. It launches in 2006 as a place for nerds to eventually complain about Google Glass discrimination, but for much of its early years, it largely exists as a complementary service to Google Reader. Its earliest users were bloggers and journalists, using it to syndicate stories. The earliest concept of Black Twitter, which the All described at the time as late-night black people Twitter, appears in 2009. Weird Twitter, a collection of something awful goons and semi-leftist shitposters, is recognized as a subculture in 2012. In 2013, Justine Sacco posts the AIDS tweet, and finally the Gamergate hashtag starts in 2014. And for the last decade, we have basically had these two digital spheres. Facebook's relatively safe, algorithmic walled garden, or the socio-political Hunger Games of Twitter.
Is Twitter good for American democracy?
I think so, yes.
Except Twitter would be the one to go on to gain such jaw-dropping levels of cultural importance that an entire presidency was run on it. Meanwhile, Facebook grew both in users and affiliated apps, but retreated up the asshole of its own algorithm. Case in point, last spring, Elon Musk and the weird freaks in his group chat became so obsessed with Twitter that Musk agreed to acquire it for $44 billion. And the biggest Facebook page in the US at the time was literally live streaming bingo.
65. If you'd like to play bingo with us and get notified early about bingo, please send me a text message with the word bingo.
In retrospect, it seems like Jack Dorsey and his what I like to call Burning Man libertarianism approach to content moderation was the real secret sauce to Twitter's cultural cachet from 2015 to 2021. He was able to balance enough plates with a deft enough hand to keep all the disparate parts of the app in place. You could watch porn. Its hashtags could topple governments. Minorities could put pressure on society's power structures. Rich people could feel like celebrities, and celebrities could feel like artists.
But more importantly, it created a lot of really good memes, even if everyone was really miserable all of the time.
Facebook, over the same stretch of time, became a place for old people to share Ring camera footage and haggle over used furniture.
And I actually discovered this month that the fourth most interacted with Facebook post in June was a picture of a potato that people were writing amen underneath.
Over the last couple weeks, Twitter has had a rough time. It account locked its content, which means if you weren't logged in, you couldn't see it. And though it seems to be back to normal now, Twitter also introduced rate limits. According to CEO Elon Musk, verified accounts can read 6,000 posts a day, unverified accounts 600 posts, and new unverified accounts 300 posts. I'm not positive that that's true based on my own testing, but whatever, who cares? He lies all the time. Twitter's business department put out a statement about the rate limits that also sounds like a lie, claiming that there was no warning issued before the limits started because it was some kind of elaborate sting to detect and eliminate bots and other bad actors that are harming the platform. I'm sure the abrupt change to the platform had nothing to do with the bills that were due on June 30th that, according to Platformer, Musk had no intention of paying. I've also seen theories that by account locking tweets, which Musk clearly did because he's pissy about OpenAI scraping Twitter, they inadvertently DDoSed themselves, which they then decided was malicious activity.
Either way, the double whammy of account locking tweets and rate limiting posts created an absolute pile-on effect that just broke the site for a while.
Twitter's SEO visibility, which has always been pretty good, reportedly dropped by around 30%.
It seems like it's beginning to recover, but I, for one, would hate to be paying to use a site that I can't use anymore.
Then, Musk's brain trust decided to finally break TweetDeck, which I've been using for close to a decade. If you've never used TweetDeck before, it offered a few additional features for power users. It allowed multiple live loading columns. It also had a special column called Activity, which showed you all the tweets being liked by the accounts you follow. And most important for brands, it supported Teams, allowing multiple users to log in and manage group accounts.
The old version of TweetDeck completely broke during the rate limiting. Not that if it was working, it would have worked anyways because of the rate limiting, but they're pushing out a new version which apparently will soon be paywalled, which might be the end of my journey with Twitter because I can't use it without TweetDeck and I don't want to pay for TweetDeck.
During the chaos, Blue Sky saw a massive uptick in new users, as did Spill, an app aimed at Black internet users. I've seen a bunch of debates about who will win the Twitter wars. The argument against Threads becoming the new Twitter is what tech analyst Fane Greenwood calls the terrible uncle problem. Greenwood recently posted on Blue Sky, Meta ensuring Threads integrates with Facebook and Instagram means your weird older relatives will easily be able to find you there. A lot of people do not want that. I think hardcore Twitter users have rose-colored glasses about the site's coolness. The reason for its success, if you can argue that it was ever really successful, wasn't that it was cooler than Facebook. It was because of its proximity to power. The reason it was so popular with activists, extremists, journalists, and shitposters was because what you posted there could actually affect culture. The thing that ties together pretty much everything that's happened on Twitter since it launched in 2006 was the possibility that those who were not in power or wanted more could influence those who were. And I don't think it's an accident that a deranged billionaire broke that, nor do I think it's an accident that we're suddenly being offered smaller, insular platforms or an offshoot of a Meta app as a replacement. The folks in charge clearly don't want Twitter to happen again. And now we have Threads. Meta clearly dusted off their kill Snapchat playbook to launch it because just as they did with ephemeral stories in 2016, Meta has taken the surface level components of a competitor's platform and ported them over to their network and retrofitted them to run on their algorithm. Comparing Meta to the Borg from Star Trek implies a level of sophistication I don't think they deserve. Comedy writer Jason O'Gilbert came closer to nailing it when he wrote, "Threads feels like when a local restaurant you enjoy opens a location in an airport." Instagram head Adam Mosseri said that Threads' algorithm is primarily about discovery. We do rank posts lightly and show recommendations, posts from accounts you don't follow in feed, which is particularly important for a new app before people follow enough accounts, he posted.
And a chronological feed is reportedly coming, although Musari also said that Threads is not a place for politics or news, which makes me wonder, like, what are you supposed to write about anyways? But I would put all of this a completely different way. Threads is digital gentrification. It's taking content that was created by real human beings and shared on non-chronological feeds and repackaging it for celebrities and brands and all of the terrible people you went to high school with, who are not even going to use this app anyways because it's not like they like to read. Without followers, Threads' algorithm continues to show me users that crawled out of the bizarre netherworld of meta celebrity. They host podcasts you've never heard of, have small roles on TV shows that don't appear to actually exist, and share videos that went viral on Reddit 4 months ago with captions like, "OMG, who did this?" Over the years, I've managed to meet a handful of these content creators, ones that decided to solely focus on meta products. All of them eventually end up producing the same anti-culture nothingness that does well on Facebook or Instagram or now Threads. They have millions of followers, and yet nothing they create goes anywhere or matters in any tangible sense. It's like watching two large cryptocurrencies trade with each other. No cultural value is ever really generated, but the numbers go up. And these creators all operate with a nervous intensity that feels almost biblical, constantly jumping to and from recycled trends, hoping to please a finicky and vengeful god that treats them like an invasive species. And save only a few, most of the meta creators I've met seem to, in return, deeply loathe the content they make, the people who like it, and meta itself. As for Threads' interface, it's also bad, though I'm hesitant to spend too much time thinking about it. Meta usually figures out how to make their apps convenient, if nothing else. A few other observations I had on how Threads' algorithm works is that it definitely is using some version of Instagram's social graph. It pulls recommendations from those who follow you as well as who you follow. Being verified definitely helps placement in the feed, and it does appear to be able to react in semi-real time like TikTok. I read a post from AOC and suddenly had a feed of Pokimane and other Twitch streamers. But by and large, my feed was mostly populated by a bunch of huge meme accounts I already followed on Instagram, and of course, brands. As for the 100 million users that came over to Threads in its first week, they clearly came from Instagram and don't know they can share or rethread or repost anything. I'm not even sure the app shows the metric on the main feed, not that there's anything worth sharing in the first place. It also flattens all the notifications you're getting into one thing, makes it super hard to find who's talking to you or who's replying, and it's genuinely just not a great app for communication, which I guess is what it's supposed to be. It also has Instagram's extremely draconian moderation policies. Of course, none of that is an accident. It's not for us. As CoinCenter spokesperson Niraj Agrawal put it, it's a top-down mass market tool for brands. In fact, more than a few users screenshot the exact same group of branded posts in the exact same order that I saw. They were waiting for us. My guiding theory has been that neither Blue Sky or Threads will end up killing Twitter. This whole race to build a new Twitter will just result in a bunch of increasingly smaller versions of the same app, used by different groups. Nothing I've really seen from Threads can convince me otherwise. I don't even suspect it'll still exist by the time I make this video, to be totally honest with you. But I do think it's worth pointing out the scale already at play here. As of last year, Twitter had around 350 million users. Threads, in its first week, has 30 million. And the most followed account on Blue Sky is the official Blue Sky account, which has 54,000 followers. Of course, Blue Sky is still invite only, but it seems extremely silly to think that these sites are comparable at the moment. But I'll leave you with this. Every era of the internet has an app like Threads, something that is promising to replace something that we all feel like we've lost. MySpace tried to bounce back with a redesign, Vine was going to be resurrected as Byte, Be Real was briefly marketed as a way to recapture the simple fun of Snapchat. But it doesn't really work that way. Our tastes change, we move on, platforms evolve or devolve, and then one day we can't even imagine using it, even though it was something that was part of our lives every day for years. As Rest of World's Kaiwei Chen pointed out this week, TikTok's Threads-like Twitter alternative Lemon 8 launched in the US in February. It rocketed to the top of the App Store, and it has since turned into a complete wasteland of content. I mean, have you even heard of it before? Threads, if there's any chance that it succeeds, which Honestly, when I started making this video, it seemed possible, and now, a week later, seems unfathomable to me. But let's pretend it's possible. If it does happen, it will happen not because Threads replaced Twitter or even beat Blue Sky. It'll be because Meta convinced a bunch of people on Instagram to move over to an app that is basically just Instagram again, but with more words, sort of, sometimes. And there's no reason to think it couldn't, I suppose. It supports almost all the same features. It has 10 images in a gallery, it's got an algorithmic feed, and all of your favorite brands and influencers are there. And Meta probably won't care. All they want is the people anyways. It doesn't matter what app we're using.